Chapter 51. Earl seemed genuinely interested in the increased interest rate. He even considered transferring funds in from another account. That account contained income he had earned through other means, but since he hadn't brought the card today, he used the one where his salary was deposited. Managing both accounts together would be much more convenient if the interest rate was higher. Exactly. Raina's smile grew even brighter. If your total deposit reaches $1 million, not only will the interest rate increase accordingly, but our bank will also offer an additional 1% interest as a special benefit. She paused and asked tentatively, "Do you have deposits elsewhere, sir?" Earl nodded. "Yes. Can I transfer them here directly?" "Of course," Raina replied sweetly. "I'd be delighted to assist you. Please, follow me to the VIP lounge. I'll prepare some drinks for you." Seated on a leather couch in the VIP lounge, sipping the citrus iced tea Raina had brewed for him, Earl experienced the comfort of being treated as a valued client for the first time. During the explanation and signing process, Raina stayed close to him, the subtle scent of her perfume occasionally wafting past his nose. Her professional attire revealed just enough to graze against Earl occasionally, adding a layer of indulgence to the experience. After completing all the formalities, Earl stood to leave. Raina escorted him warmly to the door, taking the opportunity to inquire about his personal information along the way. Just as Earl stepped out of the bank, he unexpectedly saw a strikingly pretty girl enter. Upon closer look, he realized it was Anna, one of his dorm mates from the shared dorm room. Although he wasn't particularly familiar with Anna, Earl still smiled and greeted her politely. Anna returned his smile graciously. "Anna, what brings you here?" Raina greeted Anna warmly as well upon seeing her. Anna responded, "Oh, Raina. I just came to withdraw some money for my living expenses. By the way, how's your wedding planning with Logan Hughes going?" It turned out that Raina and Anna were not only from the same hometown but also schoolmates. Despite Raina having graduated and started working, the two had kept in touch. Raina sighed with a hint of frustration. "Don't even ask. My mom insists that Logan buy a house before the wedding, but we can't afford it. The pressure is overwhelming. Given the soaring housing prices, even locals found it incredibly challenging to purchase a home." Hearing this, Anna sighed empathetically. At that moment, Raina had already taken her seat at the counter to assist Anna with her withdrawal. Out of the blue, she asked, "By the way, Anna, do you know that guy from earlier?" Anna nodded. "Yes, I know him." "Why?" A glimmer of interest flashed in Raina's eyes. "What do you think of him? Does he have a girlfriend?" It seemed she had developed a keen interest in Earl. Anna hesitated. Although she knew Earl, they weren't close. As for whether he had a girlfriend, she wasn't sure either. After a brief pause, Anna replied, "He's okay, I guess. But I think he's single." Raina's eyes lit up instantly. Chapter 52. You better seize the chance. He's tall, handsome, and seems wealthy and capable. If you could date him, at least you wouldn't have to struggle like I do. You'd even have a secure future by buying a house. Anna's eyes widened at Raina's words. She had never considered pursuing anything with Earl, but now that Raina mentioned it, the thought began to take root. Earl's appearance was undeniably outstanding. Anna had to admit that much. She had always found it hard to resist bright, outgoing men. But when it came to wealth, she was skeptical. Earl didn't exactly strike her as rich. Sensing Anna's doubt, Raina leaned in and said with a hint of mystery, "Guess how much he just deposited with us?" "Over $1 million. The number made Anna's heart skip a beat. "Are you sure it's his money? Maybe he was just transferring it for someone else." Even as she voiced her doubts, she couldn't deny how this revelation clashed with the impression she had of Earl. Raina, however, was resolute. "Trust me, that money is his. It's from his salary. I don't know his exact income, but I can confidently say he earns at least 6 figures a month." This new information sent Anna's heart racing. She began to reassess her perception of Earl. While she still doubted his financial status, she knew Raina wasn't the type to lie. A man with $1 million in savings and a 6-figure monthly income. What kind of person was Earl? This discovery made Earl's image in Anna's mind even more enigmatic. she couldn't help but think about what Miranda had once mentioned in passing. It now seemed to align perfectly with Raina's words. Could this mean she should consider it too? That afternoon, Earl returned to the dorm, where Isaac greeted him with some good news. Jordan had officially confirmed Earl's spot on the college basketball team. In 2 days, they would play a friendly match against another college, and Isaac hoped Earl could make time for practice. Later, Belle called Earl during dinner and asked him to come by the women's dorm building. When Earl arrived, he found Belle waiting for him in a quiet corner. She pulled out 2 brand new outfits from her bag, her face lighting up with a smile. "I bought these for you a few days ago. I've already washed and ironed them. Try them on and see if they fit." Earl hesitated. "Weren't these meant for your boyfriend? I don't think it's appropriate for me to wear them." Belle stomped her foot playfully, a hint of frustration in her voice. "You silly thing, don't you know how I feel by now? You're my boyfriend. Of course, these are for you." Before Earl could respond, Belle leaned forward and, catching him off guard, pressed a light kiss on his cheek, leaving a faint lipstick mark. The subtle fragrance surrounding her and the soft touch left Earl in a daze, his heart pounding. It was such a simple, intimate gesture, yet it carried a tenderness that made Earl's pulse race. He gazed at Belle's alluring face, her eyes brimming with affection. Earl felt a sudden, powerful sense of possession, as if this girl was already his. Belle reached out and wrapped her arms around him, her voice sweet and pleading. "Big Bun, I stayed up late ironing your clothes last night and ended up catching a cold. Can't you hold me for a moment?" As she spoke, she nuzzled gently against his chest. This kind of warmth and affection was an irresistible temptation for Earl. A girl so beautiful, willing to fold his clothes, buy him new ones, iron them, kiss him, and hold him, her devotion melted his heart completely. Chapter 53. Earl couldn't resist holding Belle in his arms. Surrounded by her sweet fragrance, he instinctively leaned in and kissed her. The softness and sweetness of her lips, combined with her delicate scent, stirred something within him. Could this be the taste of love? Belle let out a soft, involuntary murmur as she felt Earl's warmth. A wave of indescribable emotion swept over her. Her body relaxed, and she leaned completely into his embrace, allowing him to hold her as he pleased. She couldn't pinpoint when it had started, but she often fantasized about being in Earl's arms. Meanwhile, Earl was immersed in this newfound sensation of love. His mind began to wander. From the way Belle was acting, was she genuinely falling for him? If she wasn't, how could she play the role so convincingly? If this was all an act, it was far too meticulous. "What are you thinking about?" Belle suddenly looked up and asked softly. Earl shook his head. "Nothing." Although he felt deeply drawn to Belle, part of him couldn't help but worry, was this all just a trap wrapped in tenderness? Belle smiled sweetly, her eyes twinkling. "Big Bun, do you like me?" Earl's heart skipped a beat. He knew he couldn't dodge the question. With sincerity in his eyes, he answered slowly, "Yes, I do." Belle's eyes lit up, and a radiant joy spread across her face. Her heart felt as though it had been drenched in honey. Still holding her close, Earl said, "By the way, did you know there's a basketball game between the School of Finance and the School of Music in a few days?" Belle tilted her head curiously. "I've heard about it. Are you going to play?" Earl nodded. "I might give it a shot." Belle blinked in surprise. She hadn't expected Earl to play basketball. She didn't know how skilled he was, but there was something inherently charming and energetic about a guy who played basketball. "I'll definitely be there to cheer you on," Belle said gently. As the two continued chatting, the sound of approaching footsteps interrupted their conversation. A girl with striking features appeared and called out, "Belle, what are you doing here?" Earl immediately recognized her as Gigi Vogel, Belle's friend whom he had briefly encountered before. While he didn't know her name at the time, the disdain in her eyes during their previous meeting had left a lasting impression. Seeing Gigi, Belle quickly stepped away from Earl and said softly, "My classmate is here. I'll head back now. Don't forget to wear the clothes I ironed for you." Earl gave Gigi a polite nod as a form of greeting and then turned to leave. After walking a short distance, Earl suddenly remembered that the clothes were still with Belle. He turned back to retrieve them, only to overhear a conversation between Belle and Gigi in a secluded corner. He heard Gigi say in a mocking voice, "Look at how happy he was. Belle, I bet he's completely smitten with you." Belle responded with a proud smile. "He's not that bad, actually. He's even joining the college basketball team." Gigi scoffed dismissively. "A guy like him, he's just going to embarrass himself on the court. Do you know Flynn Osborne from Class 1? He's incredible at basketball. Back when he was studying in Federia, several top basketball schools invited him to join. With him on our team, the School of Finance doesn't stand a chance." Chapter 54. Belle hesitated before saying, "I think Earl might actually be good at basketball. I don't think he'll be all that bad." Gigi's eyes widened in disbelief. "Belle, don't tell me you're actually falling for that toad. And now you're even defending him." To Gigi, the idea of someone like Belle, who was practically a goddess in her eyes, having feelings for a guy like Earl was nothing short of an insult, a complete betrayal of common sense. Faced with Gigi's exaggerated reaction, Belle felt a pang of guilt. "Don't be ridiculous. I'd never like someone like him. Once he falls for me, I'll just dump him right away." Belle's voice wavered slightly, and she avoided looking at Gigi. Gigi finally nodded in approval. "Good. When he takes the bait, make sure to humiliate him thoroughly. Let him taste true despair." Belle, still feeling uneasy, went along with Gigi's words. "Don't worry, I won't disappoint you." Little did they know, Earl was standing just around the corner, hearing every word loud and clear. His face turned pale, and his mood plummeted to rock bottom. He had thought his springtime had finally arrived, only to realize it was all a cruel game. Earl clenched his fists, his mind burning with anger. So it was all a trap, meticulously planned by Belle. He had truly believed Belle might have a sliver of genuine affection for him. But now, it was clear that everything had been fake. If he hadn't overheard their conversation by chance, he would never have imagined Belle could be so deceitful. Earl couldn't hold back any longer. He stepped out from the shadows, glaring at Belle with fury in his eyes. "Do you think it's fun to play me like this? Does it give you a sense of accomplishment?" Belle and Gigi froze, their smiles vanishing instantly as they stared at Earl in shock. Belle's face turned pale, and she began trembling with fear. Seeing them remain silent, Earl spat out venomously, "You two are disgusting." Belle opened her mouth as if to say something, but Gigi spoke first, taunting Earl with a sneer. "So what if we played you? Did you seriously think Belle would ever be interested in a loser like you?" "Pathetic." Earl let out a bitter laugh, his anger and disappointment mixing into a hollow, mocking tone. "You're right. Someone like me isn't worthy of you. Enjoy playing your games." If they had been men, Earl wouldn't have hesitated to put them in their place with a couple of slaps. But they were women, and one of them had once made his heart flutter. So he held back, venting his frustration instead by stomping on the clothes Belle had given him. Without another word, he turned and walked away. That evening, Earl bought himself a bottle of liquor and climbed up to the dorm balcony to drink alone. He finally understood why Samuel had resorted to buying dolls after being dumped by Jenna. It was a way to escape. After draining the bottle, Earl slept off the alcohol. By the time he woke up, he felt much better. It had been a sham from the start, so why should he have taken it seriously? If he let it bother him, wouldn't he just be falling right into Belle's trap? His spirits lifted as he got ready for basketball practice later that night. When Earl and Isaac arrived at the court, bright lights illuminated the court. Students bustled around, and a few girls with books in hand stopped by the sidelines, stealing glances at the energetic players on the court. From a distance, Earl spotted Joshua practicing his shooting, with Jordan providing guidance nearby. As the pair approached, the team members greeted Isaac warmly but ignored Earl entirely. Jordan called Isaac over to join the training but sent Earl off to buy bottles of water for everyone. It was clear they were treating Earl like free labor. When Earl returned, carrying bottles of water, the team had already split into two groups for a practice game. With 14 players, the teams were perfectly balanced, leaving Earl on the sidelines, reduced to handing out water bottles and towels to the players. Chapter 55. After the practice game ended, Jordan seemed quite pleased with Joshua's performance. He waved Earl over to distribute bottles of water to the players and then began explaining key strategies for official matches to Joshua. But after a while, the water still hadn't arrived. "Where's the water? Why hasn't it been brought over yet? Do you even want to play basketball?" Jordan barked angrily. "He ran off with it," one of the students said helplessly, shaking his head with a sigh. Jordan turned to look and saw Earl walking away with a carton of water bottles on his shoulder. "What the hell? Not letting me play was one thing, but drinking my water while lecturing me? Not a chance. Forget this," Earl thought as he strode off, leaving Jordan fuming. Jordan's face turned red with anger. Fat fool, he can forget about ever playing. Later that evening, Earl returned to his dorm and received a call from Patrick. It turned out Patrick wanted to introduce Earl to a few friends in the gaming industry. While Patrick hadn't explicitly mentioned venturing into the gaming field himself, he seemed genuinely interested in the idea. Patrick wasn't one to settle for the status quo. He would never let a good opportunity slip by. That night, Belle called Earl multiple times. At first, Earl ignored the calls, but Belle's persistence wore him down. Her calls came in wave after wave, leaving Earl frustrated enough to finally pick up. He expected her to apologize, but the moment he answered, Belle's sharp voice cut through the line. "Earl Hernandez, how dare you ignore my calls?" Earl's anger flared. "I'm warning you, don't bother me again." Belle seemed to be saying something else, but Earl hung up before she could finish. He immediately turned off his phone. The next morning, when Earl turned his phone back on, he saw that Belle had called him 50 or 60 times. He ignored them all. Around noon, he met up with Patrick as planned to discuss future game development. In the following days, Earl spent time testing several games, eventually focusing on mobile games. After all, it was the era of mobile devices, and the prospects for PC games were looking dim. Aside from testing games, Earl began honing his skills in various areas related to game development. Creating a game was not something one could accomplish alone, but with Patrick's team supporting him, Earl felt he was one step closer to success. While Earl was working on his transition into gaming, the basketball tournament was drawing near. Both the university and the individual colleges placed great importance on the freshman basketball tournament. Known as a powerhouse in the Calistoga University's Basketball Association, CUBA for short, the university had earned a reputation as a basketball giant in the Calistoga region. However, their performance in recent years had been lackluster, and last year, they failed to make it to the regional top 4. This year's freshman basketball tournament was seen as a chance to scout promising new talent to strengthen the university's team for next year's CUBA Games. For freshmen with relatively lighter academic loads, participating in social activities like basketball tournaments had become a key part of campus life. The intercollegiate basketball games, in particular, were a highly anticipated event. Rumor had it that the School of Music had an exceptional scorer named Flynn Osborne. Having studied abroad during high school, Flynn had even received a full-ride athletic scholarship. While the School of Finance boasted players like Joshua and Isaac, facing a formidable opponent like Flynn meant the game would undoubtedly be intense. Adding to the excitement, the tournament would feature performances from cheerleaders, further elevating the spectacle. Both colleges were known for their abundance of beautiful students, ensuring that the event would draw even more attention. Chapter 56. The buzz surrounding the basketball game wasn't just about the players. Rumors had spread that even Bianca Bustamante, a freshman star, had joined the School of Finance's cheerleading squad. Bianca had made a dazzling debut during the freshman gala, earning her the reputation of being as radiant as a goddess. She carried an air of legend. Some of her accolades included being a student council member, champion of the National University Debate Competition, and a member of the exclusive Summit Alliance at Alnewgo University. Soon, she was set to embark on a 6-month exchange program abroad. With Bianca's presence, the cheerleading squad for the School of Finance was sure to be a highlight, possibly overshadowing their counterparts from the School of Music. The game was scheduled for the afternoon, but students had filled the seats early, eager for what promised to be an unforgettable spectacle. Earl, having finished lunch, joined his team at the assembly point to head to the sports arena. When they arrived, they found the stands packed to capacity, the excitement in the air palpable. Among the crowds were the girls from the shared dorm room, Jessica, Queenie, Miranda, Anya, and even Anna, all there to show their support. Jenna, however, was nowhere to be seen, likely off with Tyler again, leaving Samuel looking glum. Isaac and Joshua, seated with their girlfriends, basked in the attention as the girls handed them drinks. Earl greeted the group politely, but Jessica and Anya pretended not to see him. Meanwhile, Queenie was enthusiastically praising Joshua's basketball skills, her eyes shining with admiration. She was convinced that Joshua was destined for greatness on the court. Only Miranda acknowledged Earl with a slight nod, while Anna surprised him by offering words of encouragement. "Earl, do your best." Her sudden display of kindness caught Earl off guard. He hadn't expected Anna to greet him so warmly, her smile so captivating. As Earl walked away, Anna's thoughts drifted back to what Raina had told her that day. He has over $1 million in savings and earns a six-figure monthly salary. She couldn't help but recall Earl's tall, commanding figure and bright, confident eyes. The memory stirred a mix of emotions within her, especially when she thought of the financial burdens Raina was grappling with due to high housing and living costs. Maybe, just maybe, she thought she could avoid ending up in the same predicament as Raina. Anna clenched her fists tightly as if trying to hold on to her resolve. In the back rows of the stands, Earl's dorm mates had also turned up to support him: Samuel, Ronnie, and even Luca. Luca's arrival caused a stir. His growing fame as the Prince of Love songs, coupled with his slightly melancholic demeanor, had made him the secret crush of countless girls. Even now, a few girls shyly approached him, slipping him secret notes. On the opposite side of the court sat the School of Music's supporters. Among them was Belle, accompanied by her roommates. They snacked on a trail mix as they waited for the game to begin. Belle, however, looked a bit off. Despite her makeup, it was clear she hadn't slept well the previous night. The moment Earl entered the sports arena, Belle's gaze locked onto him. Earl's lively and carefree appearance only fueled her frustration. Why had she tossed and turned all night while he seemed perfectly fine? How could he act so indifferent? Was he truly so heartless? What infuriated her even more was that he hadn't answered any of her calls. He had even turned off his phone. It was outrageous. Chapter 57. Do you think Earl can even play basketball? Luna asked. Belle responded softly, he's not as bad as you make him out to be. Luna brushed her hair back, a slight smirk of disdain curling at her lips. My guess, he's just the team's water boy, perhaps even waving a towel when needed. Belle frowned slightly but didn't reply. Undeterred, Luna continued her mockery. Honestly, even the bottom feeders in my fan club are leagues ahead of him. In Luna's eyes, Belle was deluding herself, clinging to someone so insignificant and acting like he was something special. It was exhausting to watch. Pretending he's rich and handsome. What a joke. Belle didn't bother arguing further. Luna was simply too shallow. Her gaze shifted back to Earl in the distance. She couldn't shake the image of his furious, twisted expression from yesterday. Her face paled, and she bit her lip hard, forcing herself not to cry. On the basketball court, Jordan stepped forward and motioned for the players to gather as he began outlining their strategy. When Earl approached to listen, Jordan barely glanced at him before ordering, "Go fetch another box of water." It was clear Jordan didn't take Earl seriously. Instead of complying, Earl turned around and casually sat down next to Samuel. Samuel's attention was fixed on the cheerleaders from the School of Music, his face filled with admiration. Wow, their cheerleaders are stunning. Every single one of them is like a delicate flower. I'm practically drooling over here. Isaac, who had just joined them, frowned at Samuel's remark. Our cheerleaders aren't bad either. Don't forget, Bianca is on our squad. Once she shows up, you'll see what it means to outshine everyone else. While the School of Finance didn't boast an overwhelming number of stunning girls, their lineup wasn't lacking either. And with Bianca on their side, they had a trump card. At the mention of Bianca's name, Samuel perked up, his eyes brightening with excitement. Bianca on the cheer squad. That girl is like a star in the sky, unreachable. But if she ever spoke to me, I could die happy. To Samuel, Bianca was nothing short of a goddess, beautiful, untouchable, and miles out of his league. He saw himself as a croaking toad in a murky pond, while Bianca was a phoenix soaring far above, separated by galaxies. Isaac, too, secretly admired Bianca but didn't dare say it aloud. Miranda would make him regret it in no time. As they chatted, a sudden commotion rippled through the crowd. Moments later, a pair of young figures entered the sports arena, drawing every eye in the room. They were simply too striking. The young man was tall and handsome, radiating confidence in his custom jersey from the School of Music. His energy was undeniable, but next to the girl at his side, he seemed almost dull. The girl stood at about 5 feet 7 inches with a high ponytail, her features breathtakingly beautiful. Her slender figure, perfect curves, and luminous eyes held an air of intelligence and grace. She exuded an ethereal elegance, like a rose blooming in a secluded valley. She was the very embodiment of the ideal goddess in the hearts of many young men. The young man beside her was none other than Flynn Osborne. Chapter 58. In the basketball circles of Alnewgo University, Flynn was a name spoken with awe. Rumor had it that his coach regarded him as a future top-tier professional player, pinning high hopes on his career. Walking beside him, however, was none other than Bianca Bustamante, a name that could outshine even Flynn's brilliance. Bianca's presence drew the crowd's attention effortlessly. Wherever she went, she became the center of focus, even more radiant than during her stunning performance at the freshman gala. As they walked, Flynn eagerly explained various basketball strategies and game details to Bianca. His overly attentive body language betrayed a fan-like admiration, almost as if he was putting her on a pedestal. Surprisingly, Bianca appeared genuinely interested. It was said that even back in high school, she had enjoyed watching boys pour their energy into basketball games. Flynn saw this as his golden opportunity to impress her with his skills during today's match. Watching Bianca approach, Samuel's jaw practically hit the floor. Wow, Bianca looks even more gorgeous now. If only I could talk to her for just a moment. Ronnie snorted derisively. Why don't you take a good look at yourself first? What makes you think a goddess like her would even glance at a toad like you? Samuel ignored Ronnie's mockery and turned to Luca. Luca, you're the only one I know who could possibly match up to someone like Bianca. Why don't you try pursuing her? If she ends up with some rich jerk, it'll shatter my entire worldview. I'd probably go insane. Samuel had no disillusions about his place in the world. He knew he and Bianca belonged to entirely different universes, never destined to cross. Even so, deep down, he hoped Bianca would end up with someone like Luca, a true talent, rather than being dragged down by someone unworthy. To Samuel, the union of Bianca and Luca felt like the end of an era, akin to a legendary duo vanishing from the stage of history. As for himself, he was content to remain the silent well-wisher. Luca, however, only shook his head with a bitter smile. Though he had crossed paths with Bianca before, her near-perfect presence made even him feel a twinge of inferiority. Despite being hailed alongside her as one of Alnewgo University's golden duo, Luca knew deep down that he fell short compared to her. Seeing Luca's resigned expression, Samuel felt both disappointed and oddly comforted. If even Luca couldn't win Bianca's heart, then it was only natural for someone like him to be dismissed as a toad. At that moment, Earl's gaze was also drawn to Bianca. Every time he saw her, his eyes sparkled with a mix of admiration and nostalgia. Bianca, alongside Faye, was a cherished memory from his high school years. Earl had always dreamed of reuniting with Bianca during some grand occasion on campus, where he could stand before her, confident and radiant. But now, this unexpected encounter found him on the sidelines, reduced to watching over the water cooler, a far cry from the image he had envisioned for himself. As Earl debated whether to approach Bianca and say hello, Samuel patted him on the shoulder, snapping him out of his thoughts. Earl, you're staring like you've been hypnotized. Forget it, man. Girls like her are way out of our league. Just let it go. Earl smiled faintly and replied, I'm not thinking about her like that. Samuel didn't believe him, continuing his monologue. Come on, there's no shame in liking her. Even Luca admits she's out of his league. But let's be realistic, some girls are just untouchable for us. They're like stars, inspiring us to keep moving forward but never within reach, right? Earl's expression remained calm as he said evenly, I don't think so. At the very least, having a conversation with her shouldn't be a problem. Chapter 59. Samuel's curiosity was instantly piqued. You know Bianca. How could she possibly have time to talk to you? Are you daydreaming? Earl replied calmly, she was my classmate for 6 years in high school. The statement sent shockwaves through the group. Not just Samuel and Ronnie, but Luca and the surrounding students also turned to stare at Earl in surprise. Even the girls from the shared dorm room sitting nearby were drawn into the conversation. At Alnewgo University, Bianca's name was practically legendary. Any association with her, no matter how tenuous, was enough to boost someone's social clout. But Earl claimed they had been classmates for 6 years. Most of the group found it hard to believe. After all, Earl had never mentioned it before. They thought, if that were true, why wouldn't he have bragged about it earlier? Samuel voiced the skepticism of the group. Earl, are you making this up? Bianca was your high school classmate. Come on, that's impossible. A girl nearby chimed in with a laugh. Don't be ridiculous. By that logic, I could say Bianca is my best friend. Ronnie scoffed, crossing his arms. So what if you were classmates? You're still a nobody, and she's a goddess you could never hope to reach. The girls from the shared dorm room giggled, with Queenie, Joshua's girlfriend, speaking up bluntly. Earl, stop trying to boost your image by using Bianca's name. No matter what you say, she won't spare you a second glance. Instead, why don't you focus on joining more clubs and aim for a class leader position, or win a scholarship to get into the student council? That's how people will respect you. To them, Ronnie's assessment made perfect sense. Even if Earl and Bianca had been classmates, their relationship couldn't have been all that close. After all, if they were both admitted to the same university, wouldn't they have already reconnected? At the very least, they could have shared a meal or exchanged greetings. Instead, the contrast between the two only highlighted the gap. Bianca's brilliance made her the pinnacle of success, while Earl seemed like a shadow in comparison. In the social microcosm of Alnewgo University, hierarchy and status were crystal clear. Bianca stood at the apex, admired by all, while Earl was at the base, often labeled as insignificant. Yet, faced with their sarcasm and mockery, Earl remained composed. He didn't feel the need to explain himself. Their words had no power to wound him. Among the shared dorm girls, only Anna thought differently. She and Luca both knew some of the truths about Earl those others didn't. If Earl wanted, his exceptional guitar skills and remarkable talent for songwriting could easily place him on par with Luca, or even propel him to fame as a renowned lyricist. Anna also knew Earl was a successful professional, earning $1 million annually, far more impressive than anyone around him could imagine. Seeing Earl remain silent, neither Luca nor Anna felt the need to defend him. He was the essence of true mystery, unassuming, hidden, yet undeniably profound. Earl was like a bottle of aged wine, exuding understated luxury and depth. Even so, Anna couldn't stop replaying Earl's words in her mind. Could it really be true that he and Bianca were classmates? Though she hadn't interacted much with Earl, Anna knew he wasn't the type to lie, let alone exaggerate without reason. If Earl said it, then it was likely true. They must indeed have been classmates. Chapter 60. Anna asked softly, you and Bianca were classmates. Were you close? Earl paused for a moment before replying, not really. Except for the final days before graduation, Earl and Bianca's relationship had been far from close. Oh, I see. Anna nodded, a faint sense of relief washing over her. That makes sense, Samuel said with a grin. Ronnie, on the other hand, sneered. If you'd dared to claim you were close to Bianca, I'd have gone straight to her to expose your lie. At least Earl had the self-awareness not to boast about being close to Bianca, saving Ronnie the trouble of confronting her. Earl ignored the jeers, his gaze drifting toward Bianca. He debated whether he should avoid her altogether. But he quickly realized he was overthinking. With so many eyes on her, Bianca wasn't likely to notice him at all, especially since he wasn't even going to be on the court. Earl was convinced that Jordan had only brought him along to warm the bench, with no intention of letting him play. Yet fate often took unexpected turns. Despite Earl's efforts to avoid Bianca, it seemed destiny had other plans for them. Flynn led Bianca toward the School of Music's section of the stands. However, since Bianca was a student of the School of Finance and had come to support their cheerleading squad, she politely declined Flynn's invitation and instead sat near Earl to await the start of the game. Bianca's presence caused a brief stir, but the excitement soon settled. As the match was about to begin, Earl finally felt a moment of relief, only to hear an abrupt voice call out nearby. "Earl Hernandez, don't you dare leave after the game." It was Belle, of course. She had appeared out of nowhere, glaring at Earl with a fierce expression. Belle's voice wasn't particularly loud, but as she walked past Bianca, her words carried. Standing just a couple of yards away from Bianca, Belle's outburst naturally caught her attention. Following Belle's gaze, Bianca turned to see which unlucky guy had angered her so much. The name, Earl Hernandez, made her heart skip a beat. She turned her head, and there he was, standing not far away, his face frozen in a mixture of surprise and unease. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Bianca's hand clenched slightly, her bright eyes widening as her usual serene smile faltered. Could it really be? It was. The face she had seen countless times in her dream. It was him. Earl, meanwhile, found himself looking back at Bianca. He could see that she was staring at him, and he knew there was no escaping now. Summoning his composure, he gave her a small, polite smile. And so, in this unfamiliar city of Alnewgo, after countless days and miles, the two of them met again. There was no dramatic fanfare, no grand stage, no luxury cars, and no lavish outfits. It was in this quiet, unassuming moment that their paths crossed once more.